The crystal halls of the Galactic Council chamber stretched upward like the inside of a giant seashell. Light from 3 distant suns poured through windows made of materials that had no name in any human language. The chamber sat on Thesara Prime, a world chosen 10,000 years ago to be neutral ground for all the elder species of the galaxy. Daniel Cooper stood alone at the defendant's podium. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much in the past 6 months. Behind him, projected on a screen the size of a football field, was the blue marble of Earth. 8 billion people waited for the verdict. 8 billion hearts beat as one. The 12 elder species sat in a semicircle above him, their seats carved from stone that predated human civilization by millions of years. The Kethrani, insectoid beings with shells like polished obsidian, occupied the center position. The Athrani, tall and willowy with skin like pale silver, sat to the far left. The Dreth, short and stocky with 4 arms each, whispered among themselves. Each species had ruled the stars when humanity was still learning to make fire. High Counselor Vethrak rose from his seat. His compound eyes reflected the light of 1,000 stars, and when he spoke, his voice buzzed like a swarm of locusts. "The tribunal has reached its decision," he announced. "After 6 months of testimony, evidence, and deliberation, this council has determined that the species known as humanity poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability." Daniel did not move. He had expected this. From the moment humanity had made first contact 15 years ago, the council had treated them with suspicion and fear. Humans advanced too quickly. They bred too fast. They felt too deeply. They were chaos wrapped in flesh, and the orderly galaxy did not know what to do with them. "Earth is hereby quarantined indefinitely," Vethrak continued. "All human vessels are restricted to the Sol system. Any human ship detected beyond the boundary markers will be destroyed without warning. Trade embargoes will be enforced by Council military forces. Communication with human worlds will be limited to official channels only." The words fell like hammer blows. Daniel thought of his daughter back on Earth, just 12 years old, who had dreamed of traveling to other worlds since she could walk. He thought of the scientists who had spent their lives reaching for the stars, only to be told the stars did not want them. He thought of the billions who had hoped that contact with alien life would unite humanity in common purpose. Instead, it had made them prisoners in their own solar system. "The defendant may address the council one final time," Vethrak said, his tone making clear that this was merely a formality. Daniel looked up at the assembled representatives. The Athrani counselor, Miraset, met his eyes. She had been the only one to speak in humanity's defense during the tribunal. She had argued that humans deserved a chance, that their passion and creativity could benefit the galaxy. She had lost. "I will be brief," Daniel said. His voice was calm, steady. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times in his head. "Humanity has never started a war with any alien species. We came to the stars seeking friendship, knowledge, and trade. We offered our art, our music, our stories. We asked only to be given a chance." He paused, letting the silence fill the vast chamber. "This council has chosen to judge us not for what we have done, but for what you fear we might do. You look at our history and see violence. We look at our history and see a species that has overcome every obstacle placed before it. You see chaos. We see adaptability. You see danger. We see potential." Vethrak's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Your species' self-assessment is noted. The verdict stands." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then I have only one more thing to say. Humanity will remember this day. We will remember every face in this chamber, every vote cast against us. And one day, when the galaxy needs us, We will remember how you treated us when we needed you." He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, he could hear the council members already moving on to other business, humanity already forgotten. Just another failed species, they thought. Just another race that would wither in isolation. As Daniel's shuttle lifted off from Thessera Prime, he looked out the window at the gleaming towers of the council complex. For 15 years, humanity had tried to earn its place among the stars through diplomacy, through patience, through peaceful demonstration of their worth. That time was over. He opened a secure channel and typed a single message. Prometheus Protocol is now active. 12 light-years away, Admiral Lisa Grant received the message in a bunker buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. She was 61 years old, with iron-gray hair cut short and eyes that had commanded fleets and buried too many friends. The bunker around her was a relic of an earlier age, built to survive nuclear war, now repurposed for a different kind of conflict. Her staff stood at attention around the central table. Commander Kevin Park, her tactical officer, was a quiet man from Seattle who could calculate fleet movements in his head faster than most computers. Dr. Natalie Brooks, head of research and development, had 3 doctorate degrees and a habit of solving impossible problems before breakfast. Captain Danny Vance, her most trusted ship commander, had the easy smile of a man who had faced death often enough to stop fearing it. "The council has made their choice," Lisa said, her voice cutting through the silence. "They have decided that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. They have decided to lock us in our own solar system and wait for us to die." She looked at each of them in turn. "They made a mistake. Not because we will seek revenge, not because we want war, but because they have underestimated what humanity can accomplish when our backs are against the wall." She pressed a button on the table, and holographic displays flickered to life throughout the bunker. Ship designs, research projects, training programs, resource allocations. 18 months of work, planned in secret for exactly this moment. "We have 18 months, Lisa continued. 18 months to build a fleet that can match anything in the galaxy. 18 months to develop technology they think is impossible. 18 months to prepare for a future where humanity will never again bow to anyone." Dr. Brooks leaned forward. "The Council believes it takes 10,000 years for a species to develop dimensional folding. They are wrong." Kevin Park brought up a tactical display. "They believe their fleets are invincible. They are wrong about that too." Danny Vance smiled his easy smile. "And they believe humans give up when things get hard. That might be their biggest mistake of all." Lisa Grant looked at the photograph on her desk. Her husband, Robert, dead 3 years now when a Kethrani warship accidentally destroyed a civilian passenger liner. The council had ruled it an unfortunate misunderstanding. No punishment was given. She had promised him, as she held his memory close to her heart, that she would never let humanity kneel. "Get to work," she ordered. "We have a galaxy to surprise." 18 months passed like a held breath. The galaxy moved on. The Galactic Council debated trade routes and border disputes, mineral rights and diplomatic marriages. Humanity became a footnote in their proceedings, a cautionary tale told to young species about the dangers of advancing too quickly. The quarantine patrols around the Sol system reported nothing unusual. Earth's few remaining ships made no attempt to cross the boundary markers. Radio signals from human worlds spoke of economic collapse, food shortages, and civil unrest. The elder species nodded with satisfaction. This was how it always ended. Isolation bred despair. Despair bred division. Division bred collapse. In a century or two, they would send archaeological teams to study the ruins of human civilization. just as they had done with 100 other failed species. They had no idea what was really happening. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in tunnels that did not appear on any official map, Dr. Natalie Brooks stood before a machine that should not exist. It was the size of a small house, covered in wires and cooling systems and components that had been invented, tested, and perfected in the span of 16 months. Her team of 200 scientists worked around the clock in shifts, sleeping in bunks carved into the red stone, eating meals at their workstations. Dimensional folding requires understanding the fabric of space at its deepest level, Natalie explained to Admiral Grant, who had traveled from Earth for this demonstration. The Council species have been working on this technology for 10,000 years. They believe it cannot be rushed, that understanding must grow slowly like a tree. She smiled, the smile of someone who had just proven the universe wrong. They forgot that humans are not trees. We are fire. We spread fast. We burn bright. And we do not wait for permission. She pressed a button. The machine hummed to life. The air in the chamber seemed to bend and twist. And then, in the space between heartbeats, a hole opened in reality itself. Through it, they could see the stars of a system 300 light-years away, as clear as looking through a window. Lisa Grant stared at the impossible sight. How soon can we install these on ships? 6 months for the first fleet, a year for full production capability. The Admiral nodded slowly. Then we stay on schedule. What about weapons? On the dark side of Earth's moon, Commander Kevin Park oversaw the construction of humanity's new fleet. The shipyards were built into craters, invisible from any angle the Council patrols might observe. Thousands of workers lived in underground habitats. Their families told they were working on mining operations or scientific research. The ships taking shape in the vacuum were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Human engineers had studied every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on, legally or otherwise, and then they had improved it. The Council species built ships to last for centuries, slow and steady and conservative. Humans built ships to win. Kevin walked through the skeletal frame of the lead vessel, the Resilience. She would be fast, agile, and armed with weapons that combined human creativity with stolen alien science. Her crew would be trained not just to fight, but to think, to adapt, to find solutions in the chaos of battle. The Council fleets operate on predictable patterns, Kevin told his engineering teams. They have fought the same way for thousands of years, because it has always worked. They have never faced an enemy who fights differently every time. He looked up at the growing hull of the Resilience. We are going to be there first. On the colony world of New Jakarta, the third planet of a system at the edge of human space, Governor Samuel Ortiz played his part with the skill of a master actor. He was a former theater director from New York who had turned to politics, and now his greatest role was convincing the galaxy that humanity was broken. Every week, he staged protests in the capital city. Desperate citizens demanding food. Workers striking against impossible conditions. Politicians screaming at each other while the cameras rolled. The broadcasts were sent to nearby alien worlds, where intelligence officers watched with satisfaction. The humans are destroying themselves, they reported. No intervention will be necessary. They will collapse within a decade. What the aliens did not see were the training camps hidden in the jungles, where young men and women learned to fight in ways no alien species had ever encountered. They did not see the underground factories producing weapons and supplies. They did not see the communication networks linking every human colony in a web of coordinated deception. Samuel Ortiz stood on his balcony at night, looking up at the stars and smiled. The greatest trick humanity had ever pulled was convincing the galaxy that they had given up. On the colony of Harvest's End, a young woman named Amy Reyes completed her training in the newly formed Stellar Marines. She was 24 years old, with dark hair and the kind of quiet determination that commanders noticed. She had grown up on a farm in Texas, watching the stars every night and dreaming of the day she could walk among them. The quarantine had stolen that dream, or so the galaxy believed. Amy's training was brutal. Combat in zero gravity, in toxic atmospheres, in temperatures that would kill an unprotected human in seconds. She learned to fight with weapons and without, to lead small teams and to survive alone. She learned the weaknesses of every council species, the gaps in their armor, the blind spots in their tactics. But more than anything, she learned what she was fighting for. "Humanity has been told we do not deserve the stars," her instructor said on the final day of training. "We have been told we are too violent, too emotional, too unpredictable. They are not wrong. We are all of those things. But we are also brave, creative, and stubborn beyond all reason." He looked at the assembled Marines, young men and women who had chosen to serve a species that the galaxy had rejected. "One day soon, we will show them what those qualities can accomplish." Amy wrote letters home to her mother, careful to say nothing that might reveal her true purpose. She wrote about the food, about her fellow trainees, about how much she missed the open sky of Texas. She did not write about the combat simulations, the tactical briefings, or the burning certainty in her heart that she would fight for humanity's future. Some things were too important for words. In her bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Lisa Grant reviewed the final fleet readiness report. Every ship was built. Every crew was trained. Every contingency was planned. They had weapons the Council did not know existed. They had technology the Council believed impossible. They had soldiers who would rather die than surrender. And most importantly, they had something the elder species had lost thousands of years ago. They had something to prove. Lisa closed the report and looked at the photograph of her husband. In the 18 months since the quarantine began, she had not allowed herself to grieve. There had been too much work, too many decisions, too many lives depending on her focus. Now, in the quiet darkness of her office, she let herself remember his laugh, his kindness, his unshakable belief that humanity was capable of greatness. "We are ready," she whispered to his memory, "and we will make them understand that humanity does not kneel." Across human space, in shipyards and training camps and secret laboratories, men and women prepared for a war they hoped would never come. They did not hate the Council species. They did not dream of conquest or revenge. They simply refused to accept a future where humanity was locked away and forgotten. The galaxy had made its decision. Now humanity would make theirs. 18 months of silence, 18 months of preparation, 18 months of waiting. The waiting was almost over. The Dreth were a species of merchants and opportunists. They had survived 10,000 years of galactic politics by knowing exactly when to push and when to back away. Their 4 arms made them excellent craftsmen, and their sharp minds made them excellent traders. They had voted in favor of Earth's quarantine, not out of fear, but out of calculation. Isolated humans meant desperate humans, and desperate humans meant cheap resources. Commander Grethnak of the Dreth raiding fleet had done this many times before. Find a quarantined species. Wait until they were weak, and then take what you wanted. The Council would look the other way. They always did. His convoy of 12 warships emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter, their sensors already scanning for targets. The human colony on Europa was supposed to be undefended. Intelligence reports showed only civilian vessels, mining operations, maybe a few patrol craft that would scatter at the first sign of military power. Grethnak's sensor officer made a sound of confusion, then a sound of alarm. "Commander, I am detecting multiple contacts, large contacts. They are everywhere." Grethnak looked at his display and felt something he had not felt in 300 years of military service. Fear. Ships surrounded his convoy, dozens of them, ships that did not match any known human design, ships that should not exist, ships that had somehow appeared without any warning from hyperspace or normal transit. They hung in the darkness like wolves around a campfire, waiting. A communication signal cut through all channels. "This is Captain Danny Vance of the Earth vessel Resilience. You have entered human space without authorization. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Grethnak's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of nervous calculation. His ships were armed for raiding, not for battle against a fleet this size. But surely these humans were bluffing. The Council report said they had no military capability. This must be a trick, holograms or remote drones designed to frighten intruders away. "Human vessel," he replied, forcing confidence into his voice. "You are in violation of Galactic Council Quarantine Order 7742. Stand down immediately or face the consequences." There was a pause. Then the human spoke again, his voice almost amused. "You have 20 seconds. Grethnak made his decision. These primitives were bluffing. They had to be. He ordered his ships to attack formation and opened fire on the nearest human vessel. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Human ships moved in ways that defied everything Grethnak knew about space combat. They blinked in and out of existence, appearing behind his vessels and firing before disappearing again. Their weapons cut through Dreth shields like they were made of paper. His ships exploded one by one, their crews not even understanding what was killing them. When it was over, only Grethnak's flagship remained, drifting and damaged. Human Marines boarded his vessel, moving with terrifying efficiency. They secured every deck in minutes, taking prisoners without killing anyone they did not have to. Captain Danny Vance walked onto the bridge of the captured ship. He was a tall man with an easy smile that did not reach his eyes. "You are going to deliver a message to your people," he told Grethnak, "and through them, to the Galactic Council." He leaned close and his smile faded. "Earth remembers every wrong. We count every slight. But we do not wish for war. This is our one and only warning. The next Dreth fleet that enters human space will not have survivors to carry messages." Grethnak was released. His damaged ship limped back to Dreth space, where his report caused immediate panic. The Council was contacted. Emergency sessions were called. For the first time in centuries, the elder species felt something they had forgotten existed: uncertainty. High Counselor Vethrak dismissed the incident. "Dreth incompetence," he declared. "They were surprised by primitive tactics and panicked." Humanity remains contained and poses no threat to the stability of the galaxy. Counselor Mira said of the Athrani stood to speak. Her silver skin seemed to glow in the chamber's light, and her voice carried the weight of ancient wisdom. "I warned this council when we quarantined Earth," she said. "I told you that humans were not like other young species. They do not follow the patterns we expect. They do not accept limitations. And now they have developed dimensional folding, a technology we believed would take them another 5,000 years. Vethrak's compound eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting, Counselor?" "I am suggesting that we made an error. I am suggesting that we reconsider the quarantine before this situation escalates beyond our control. The council chamber erupted in noise. Species shouted over each other. Alliances formed and broke in moments. Ancient rivalries surfaced. Vethrak restored order with difficulty. "The quarantine stands," he declared. "Humanity has demonstrated exactly why they cannot be trusted. They have developed weapons in secret. They have attacked a council member species. They are the threat we always knew them to be." Miraset sat down slowly. She had tried. She had failed. And she knew, with the certainty of someone who had lived for 800 years, that the council was walking toward a cliff. On Earth, the debate was different, but no less intense. Dr. Marcus Webb, a historian who had spent his life studying the rise and fall of civilizations, stood before the unified Earth government in the Great Hall of Geneva. He was 70 years old, with wild white hair and the kind of passion that made people listen. "We have shown our strength," he argued. "Now we must show our wisdom. The Council is afraid. Afraid species make mistakes. We should use this moment to negotiate, to find a path toward peace." Admiral Lisa Grant shook her head. "The Council will never negotiate from fear. They will only respect us when they have no other choice. We must continue to build our strength until they understand that they cannot threaten us anymore." President Catherine Palmer listened to both arguments. She was 62 years old, a former teacher from Ohio who had never imagined she would lead humanity through its darkest hour. She had grandchildren who might never see an alien world. She had buried friends who died in the accidents that preceded the quarantine. She carried the weight of 8 billion hopes on her shoulders. "We will wait," she decided finally. "We will watch, and we will be ready. The Council has shown us who they are. Now we must decide who we want to be." Across human space, the waiting continued. Ships patrolled the borders, their crews trained and alert. Scientists continued their research, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Soldiers trained and waited, knowing that the peace could shatter at any moment. And in the council chambers, the elder species argued about what to do with a problem they had created themselves. Ambassador Daniel Cooper, still serving despite everything, watched from his isolated seat in the gallery. He had warned them. He had given them every chance. Now all he could do was watch as they made their next mistake. He did not have to wait long. 6 months after the Dreth incident, a new proposal came before the council. The Kathrani delegation, led by High Counselor Vethrak himself, argued that the human colonies outside the Sol system posed a continuing threat to galactic stability. They had been established before the quarantine, on worlds that rightfully belonged to the Council. The solution was simple, Vethrak explained. Evacuate the colonists and sterilize the worlds. Remove the threat at its source. 2 billion humans on 12 colony worlds. Given 30 days to abandon their homes, their lives, everything they had built. Daniel Cooper stood up from his seat. He did not speak. He simply looked at each council member in turn, memorizing their faces, noting how they voted. 8 in favor, 3 opposed, 1 abstention. Then he walked out of the chamber. He was done talking. Humanity was done asking for permission to exist. The war had begun. The message reached every human world at the same moment. 30 days to evacuate. 30 days to abandon homes that had been built with blood and sweat and tears. 30 days to accept that the galaxy had decided humanity did not deserve to exist beyond their own solar system. On the colony of Harvest's End, Governor Maria Santos read the council's ultimatum and then did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She laughed. "They think we will run," she said to her assembled cabinet. They think we will pack our belongings and crawl back to Earth like beaten dogs. They do not know us at all." Maria was 55 years old, a farmer's daughter from California who had come to Harvest's End 20 years ago with nothing but hope and determination. She had watched her colony grow from a handful of prefabricated shelters to a thriving world of 200 million people. She had buried her husband here, raised her children here, grown old here. She was not leaving. "Send a message to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them we stand." Within hours, every human colony had sent the same message. Not one would evacuate. Not one would surrender. The Council had given them 30 days to abandon their homes. Instead, they had 30 days to prepare for war. Admiral Lisa Grant received the reports in her command center. Around her, holographic displays showed the disposition of human forces across 12 colony worlds. It was not enough. Against the full might of the Council fleets, they could not win a defensive war. But they did not have to defend. They only had to survive long enough for the galaxy to understand that humanity was not going away. "Deploy the fleet," she ordered. "Every ship we have. We meet them at Harvest's End." The Kathrani Armada assembled at the edge of human space. 300 warships, each one ancient and massive, carrying weapons that had burned worlds to ash. High Admiral Vethkal, the High Counselor's own son, commanded from the flagship Eternal Justice. He had fought a dozen campaigns against rebellious species, and he had never lost. "The humans will scatter when they see our strength," he told his officers. "They always do. Young species lack the will to face true power." His fleet jumped to hyperspace, confident in their superiority. They emerged near Harvest's End and found themselves surrounded. The human fleet had grown in the months since the Dreth incident. 200 ships now faced the Kathrani Armada, arranged in formations that followed no pattern the alien tacticians recognized. And beside them, flying in perfect coordination, were ships bearing the silver insignia of the Athrani Communion. Counselor Miraset's voice cut across all communication channels. "The Athrani stand with humanity. We will not participate in genocide. Any species that attacks human worlds today makes an enemy of us." Vethkal's mandibles clicked with rage. The Athrani had been council members for longer than his species had existed. Their betrayal was unprecedented. "You doom yourselves," he replied. "When this day is done, the Athrani will share humanity's fate." "Perhaps," Miraset answered. "But we will face that fate with honor. Can you say the same?" The Battle of Harvest's End began with a single shot. A Kathrani cruiser, eager for glory, fired on an Athrani vessel without orders. In that moment, 10,000 years of galactic stability shattered like glass. Commander Kevin Park coordinated the human fleet from the bridge of the Resilience. He had trained his entire life for this moment, running simulations that seemed impossible until they weren't. His ships moved like a single organism, flowing around the Kathrani formations, striking weak points and withdrawing before the enemy could respond. "The Council fleets are designed for sieges," he explained to his crew. "They surround a world and grind it down over months or years. They have never fought an enemy who refuses to hold still." Human ships blinked in and out of normal space. Using dimensional folding to appear behind enemy lines, fire devastating volleys, and vanish before retaliation could arrive. The Kathrani commanders screamed orders that their ships could not follow. Their ancient tactics, refined over millennia, were useless against an enemy who broke every rule of warfare. On the surface of Harvest's End, Lieutenant Amy Reyes led her Marine squad through the burning streets of the capital city. Kathrani shock troops had made it past the orbital defenses, landing in drop pods that cratered the downtown district. They had expected to find terrified civilians and scattered resistance. They found the stellar Marines instead. Amy's squad held a hospital full of children and elderly patients who could not be evacuated. The building had thick walls and good sight lines, but against Kathrani assault troops, it should have fallen in minutes. It held for 6 hours. Amy lost friends that day. She watched soldiers she had trained with, eaten with, laughed with, fall one by one to Kathrani weapons. She took wounds that would have killed anyone less stubborn. But she did not retreat. She did not surrender. She held that hospital until reinforcements arrived and the last Kathrani trooper was dead. "Why do you fight so hard?" a wounded Kathrani soldier asked her before he died. "You cannot win. There are too many of us." Amy looked down at him, blood dripping from a cut on her forehead. "We are not fighting to win," she said. "We are fighting because we are human, and humans do not know how to quit." In orbit, the battle reached its climax. The Kathrani flagship Eternal Justice had fought its way through human lines, targeting the civilian population centers on the planet below. Vethkal was determined to complete his mission, even if it cost him his entire fleet. Captain Danny Vance of the Resilience saw what was happening. He ordered his ship to intercept, pushing his engines beyond their rated limits. The Resilience was smaller than the Eternal Justice, outgunned and out-armored. But Danny had something the Kathrani admiral did not. He had been waiting for this moment his entire life. The Resilience dove into the Eternal Justice's weapons range, absorbing fire that should have destroyed it. Human engineers had built their ships to take punishment that would shatter alien vessels. The hull buckled. Atmosphere vented. Crew members died at their stations. But the ship kept coming. At the last possible moment, Danny ordered a dimensional jump. The Resilience blinked out of existence and reappeared inside the Eternal Justice's shield perimeter, close enough to touch. Every weapon on the human ship fired at once, directly into the Kathrani flagship's engine core. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. Vethkal survived, pulled from the wreckage by human Marines who could have let him die. They did not. Humanity was not fighting for revenge. They were fighting for recognition. The Kathrani fleet scattered. Leaderless and demoralized, their ships retreated to hyperspace, leaving behind the burning wrecks of over 100 vessels. The Battle of Harvest's End was over. President Catherine Palmer addressed the galaxy from a bunker beneath Geneva. Her face was tired but determined, her voice steady despite the weight of what had happened. "Today, humanity was told that we do not deserve to exist," she said. "Today, we proved that we will not accept that verdict. We did not seek this war. We did not want this battle. But we will not apologize for surviving." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "To the species of the Galactic Council, you have a choice. You can continue this war, and we will fight every battle, on every world, until one side is destroyed, or you can recognize that humanity has earned its place among the stars." She leaned forward. "We are not going away. We are not backing down, and we are not afraid of you anymore. The next move is yours." Across the galaxy, species watched and wondered. The order that had governed the stars for 10,000 years was crumbling. The young species that was supposed to wither in isolation had become something no one expected, a force that could not be ignored. The war lasted 2 more years, but its outcome was decided at Harvest's End. One by one, the Council species withdrew from the conflict. The Dreth, humiliated in their first encounter with human ships, switched sides entirely, their merchant instincts telling them to bet on the winning side. The Valorian Compact, ancient and proud, negotiated a mutual defense pact with Earth after their observers witnessed human soldiers risk their lives to save wounded Valorian prisoners. The smaller species, who had always resented council rule, saw an opportunity to finally be heard. The Great Alliance that had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years fractured along lines that had been invisible for millennia. Only the Kathrani refused to surrender. High Counselor Vethrak, his son now a prisoner of humanity, devoted everything his species had to the war. Kathrani ships attacked human colonies without mercy, burning settlements and killing civilians. They believed that if they could cause enough pain, humanity would eventually break. They were wrong. Every attack made humanity more determined. Every atrocity strengthened their resolve. And as the months passed, the tide turned irreversibly against the Kathrani. Their homeworld was surrounded by the combined fleets of humanity, the Athrani, the Valorians, and a dozen other species who had finally found the courage to stand against tyranny. Admiral Lisa Grant commanded the final assault. Her hair had gone completely white in the 2 years since the war began. She had lost friends, colleagues, and countless soldiers under her command. She had ordered strikes that killed millions and made decisions that would haunt her for whatever life she had left. Now she looked at the Kathrani homeworld on her display and felt no satisfaction, only weariness, and a desperate hope that this would be the end. "Open a channel to their government," she ordered. High Counselor Vethrak appeared on her screen. He looked old in a way that went beyond physical age. His compound eyes were dull, his movements slow. The arrogant leader who had condemned Earth to isolation was gone, replaced by a broken creature who had watched his life's work crumble around him. "You have won," he said. "What are your terms? Unconditional surrender? The destruction of our civilization? Revenge for all we have done to your species?" Lisa shook her head slowly. "We offer you the same choice you denied us," she said. "Join the new order as equals, not as conquerors, not as conquered. Equals." Vethrak stared at her, his mandibles clicking in confusion. "I do not understand. We tried to destroy you. We killed your people, burned your worlds, treated you as vermin to be exterminated. Why would you offer us mercy?" Lisa thought about her husband, dead before the war even began. She thought about the soldiers she had buried, the families she had written letters to, the price humanity had paid for the right to exist. "Because mercy is what separates civilization from savagery," she said. "Because we want to build a galaxy where this never happens again. And because proving you wrong about us matters more than making you suffer." She leaned forward, her eyes hard despite her words. "But make no mistake. This is your only chance. If you refuse, if you continue this war, we will end your civilization. Not because we want to, but because we must. The choice is yours." The Kathrani High Council debated for 3 days. Hardliners demanded continued resistance, arguing that death was preferable to submitting to the species they had despised. But younger voices spoke of survival, of rebuilding, of the possibility that they had been wrong about humanity all along. In the end, they accepted. 1 year later, a new galactic assembly convened. It met on Earth, in a great hall built on the shores of Lake Geneva. The building was designed by architects from a dozen species, its spires reaching toward the sky like hands open in welcome. The walls were transparent, offering views of the mountains and the lake and the clouds that drifted past in lazy patterns. Ambassador Daniel Cooper sat in the gallery, watching as representatives from over 200 species took their seats. He was older now, his hair completely gray, his face lined with years of struggle, but his eyes were clear, and for the first time in a decade, he felt something like hope. Beside him sat a young Kathrani diplomat named Theraset. She was the granddaughter of High Counselor Vethrak, who had died peacefully in his sleep 6 months after the war ended. She had requested this seat, specifically, wanting to witness this moment from beside the human who had stood alone in the council chamber so many years ago. "My grandfather spoke of you often in his final days," she told Daniel quietly. "Always with regret. He believed until the end that his greatest mistake was not what he did to humanity, but how little he understood you." Daniel nodded slowly. "I hope your generation will do better. We will try. That is all any of us can do." General Amy Reyes attended the ceremony with her daughter, a bright-eyed child of 6 who had been born during the darkest days of the war. Amy's uniform bore the medals of a dozen campaigns, but she wore civilian clothes today. The war was over. It was time to be something other than a soldier. "What is this place?" her daughter asked, looking up at the soaring ceiling. "This is where people from all over the galaxy come to talk to each other," Amy explained. "To solve problems with words instead of weapons. Why did they not do that before?" Amy smiled sadly. "Because sometimes people have to learn the hard way that fighting does not solve everything. But now they know. And it is our job to make sure no one ever forgets." President Catherine Palmer, serving her final term, gave the opening address. She stood at the podium with the flags of 200 species behind her, the blue marble of Earth visible through the windows, and spoke to a galaxy that had finally decided to listen. Many years ago, this council's predecessor voted to condemn humanity to isolation. They believed we were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too different to be trusted with a place among the stars. They were not entirely wrong. Humanity is dangerous. We are unpredictable. We are different from every species that came before us. She paused, her eyes sweeping the assembled representatives. But those qualities are not weaknesses. They are strengths. Our danger makes us protectors. Our unpredictability makes us creative. Our differences give us perspectives that no other species possesses. She straightened, her voice growing stronger. Today we begin a new era, not an era of human dominance, for we have no interest in ruling anyone. Not an era of revenge, for we have already forgiven those who wronged us. An era of partnership, of shared discovery, of mutual respect. She smiled, the first genuine smile she had allowed herself in years. The old council ruled through fear. This assembly will lead through hope. And together, we will build a galaxy that our children and grandchildren will be proud to inherit. The applause that followed came from beings of every shape and size and color, from former enemies and new friends, from species that had lived among the stars for millennia and species that had earned their place through fire and determination. Later that evening, as the celebrations continued, Admiral Lisa Grant stood alone on a balcony overlooking the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of gold and orange. Ships from 100 worlds drifted overhead, their lights blinking like new stars being born. She thought about her husband. She thought about the soldiers who had died under her command. She thought about the price humanity had paid for this moment. "Was it worth it?" a voice asked behind her. She turned to find Daniel Cooper standing in the doorway. He looked as tired as she felt. "Ask me in 100 years," she said. "If the peace holds, if our grandchildren grow up in a galaxy where no species is judged by what they might become instead of who they are, then yes, it was worth everything." Daniel nodded and came to stand beside her. "Do you think we changed them?" he asked. "The council species, I mean. Do you think they truly understand now?" Lisa watched as an Athrani vessel glided past, its silver hull catching the last light of the sun. "I think we changed everyone," she said, "including ourselves. The humans who survived this war are not the same as the humans who faced that tribunal. We know what we are capable of now, the good and the bad." She turned to face him. "The question is not whether they understand us. The question is whether we understand ourselves well enough to live up to the example we have set. We showed the galaxy that humanity refuses to kneel. Now we have to show them that we also know how to stand beside others as equals." Below them, in the great hall, music was playing. Human music, but also Athrani harmonics and Valorian rhythms and sounds from species whose names most humans still could not pronounce. Children of all kinds ran between the tables, playing games that needed no translation. Earth, seen from orbit, was no longer alone. Ships from 100 worlds orbited in peace. On the surface, beings who had been enemies a generation ago worked together to build something new. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had not sought revenge or dominance or power. They had simply refused to be excluded from it, and in doing so, they had changed everything.